everyone! So ever since I posted my tutorials about faux Swiss meringue buttercream, Swiss meringue, and Italian meringue buttercream, I've been getting a lot of questions from people about buttercream, and a lot of people got curious. So I decided to, kasi medyo kalat-kalat siya and people ask the same questions all the time. So I decided to collect all the questions and compile everything and answer them in one video. So you always have something to look back to and rewatch every time you have buttercream questions. I have here 27 questions that people asked me about buttercream, and today I'll be answering them one by one. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can get notified every time I have a new video up. And please follow my YouTube channel. If you're watching this on Facebook, please follow my YouTube channel, because I post my longer videos on YouTube more than on Facebook. And also, when I have short tutorials, I post them on my TikTok or sometimes my IG Reels. So let's start. Number one, what's the frosting that you use for your cakes? The frosting that you use, usually it's one of the three. When I don't have a lot of time, faux Swiss meringue buttercream. When I'm doing textures, buttercream textures on cakes, I use Swiss meringue buttercream or Italian meringue buttercream. When I want something really light, not as sweet, so I use Italian meringue buttercream. And when I'm piping flowers, I use Gigi's Korean buttercream recipe. Question number two, is buttercream stable? I get asked this question all the time. Can I use buttercream in our climate? I live in the Philippines and I use buttercream all the time. Okay, I use buttercream for all my cakes. If you've seen my cakes, yung mga malalaki, 5 tiers, 4 tiers, 5-tier cakes, most of the time the filling is either cream cheese frosting or buttercream or ganache, but most of the time it's buttercream. All the buttercream cakes that you have seen me post, they're all either faux, Swiss, or Italian. So yes, you can use buttercream in the Philippines, definitely. There are a lot of cake decorators in the Philippines whose medium is buttercream and they don't have any problems. I think a lot of people confuse when they say stable. What do you mean stable? Because they always compare buttercream to non-dairy whipped topping. Non-dairy whipped topping, the reason that it withstands heat is exactly because it's non-dairy. But when you talk about butter, butter is a dairy product, meaning it's perishable. You can't leave it out at room temperature, even if butter doesn't melt. You can't leave it out at room temperature because of other than it's going to get soft. There's the food danger zone that we call. So yes, definitely you can use buttercream in the Philippines. That's what I use, and I haven't had any problems with it. Third question, is buttercream better than whipped cream? I think when people ask about whipped cream, they refer to non-dairy whipped cream. Definitely buttercream is better. For me, buttercream is better than whipped cream in terms of flavor, in terms of workability, in terms of versatility. One, in terms of flavor, buttercream alone, plain buttercream alone, is definitely superior in flavor to non-dairy whipped topping. Two, there's so many different flavor variations that you can do that you can't do with whipped cream or non-dairy whipped cream. Third, in terms of workability, you've seen the cakes that I've done. You can do textures with buttercream. You can do different designs with buttercream. You can pipe with it. You can create different designs with it to resemble fondant, which you can't do with whipped cream. And when you make a mistake, it's so easy to scrape it off. All you have to do is chill it and scrape it off. You can't do that with whipped cream. Kaya konting smudge whipped cream, mahirap siyang tanggalin. With buttercream, it's so easy because it sets hard, so you can just easily scrape it off. So that's the thing that I like about buttercream. Number 4, can you make buttercream without a mixer? You can, but I wouldn't recommend it because when making buttercream, kailangan mabilis siya. You need a lot of if you're going to do it manually by hand, you're going to need a lot of elbow grease. You need strong hands to do it. And if you're working with hot sugar syrup for Italian margarine buttercream, it might not be safe to do it. You might burn yourself. So to make everything easier for you, please use a mixer. Fifth question, what is the best buttercream for cakes? I get asked this question a lot as well. I can use any type of buttercream, like either the faux, the Swiss, the Italian, or the American. I can use it for any of my cakes and make it work. My personal favorite is Italian margarine buttercream because it's smooth, it's light, it's easy to color because it's lighter than the other types of buttercreams. And it, for me, tastes the best. But you can use kahit alin doon, Italian, Swiss, or faux Swiss. They will all work the same. It all depends on your preference, really. Do I need to use butter? Can I replace the butter with margarine? Buttercream is cream. It's a cream mixture that's made of butter. Okay. So yes, please use. We recommend using butter. Can you replace the butter with margarine? You can. However, there will be differences in taste, in workability, in stability, and texture. Remember, margarine has more water content than butter, so definitely your buttercream will be a lot softer if you use margarine. Second, stability, margarine melts much quicker than butter, so expect your buttercream to be on the softer side if you use margarine. Flavor-wise, butter will be superior in flavor compared to margarine. I don't like the taste of margarine, honestly. I find it too strong, too artificial. And texture, when you eat buttercream made with butter compared to buttercream that's made with margarine, you'll notice the difference. It leaves like a greasy mouthfeel after eating it, which I really, really, really don't like. So I highly recommend, please use butter. Don't try to substitute anything else for butter because it's not going to be the same. And this is when people start having problems. Question, can I use salted butter? Definitely can use salted butter. However, don't add any more salt to the recipe. So if you're using, say for example, 3 cups of butter in a recipe, use 2 cups of unsalted butter and 1 cup of salted butter. Some people have been successful with using just pure salted butter. I tried that before. It was too salty for me, so I just did half and half or a third. Different brands have different levels of salt content, so just be careful when you're replacing unsalted butter for unsalted butter. But yeah, you can use salted butter. Next, what is crusting buttercream? This is the type of buttercream that forms a crust after exposed to air for some time. So an example of that is American buttercream because it contains a high amount of powdered sugar. That's why they use American buttercream for cakes that need to withstand hot weather so it doesn't melt quickly. There's also what we call decorator's buttercream or mock buttercream. Mock buttercream or decorator's buttercream uses all shortening, so all the butter is replaced with shortening. We normally use this, and I make this for my students for practicing piping and for icing cakes. And if you live in a really, really hot weather, that's what some people use. I don't recommend it, but if you like it, then feel free to use it. Next question, can I make a vegan buttercream? Like I said, buttercream is made of butter. There are alternatives. People have substituted the butter for buttercream. However, it's not going to be the same as real buttercream. Vegan buttercream, what they mean by this is they use vegan butter. So meaning there's no dairy in it. Again, it's going to be a lot softer. It will not taste as good and it will melt quicker than buttercream that's made with real butter. But if you're vegan, I guess so. You can also use an alternative like a non-dairy whipped cream if you don't like a dairy buttercream. Number 10. How can I achieve a whiter buttercream? I'll teach you a little trick. So when you're whipping buttercream, faux, Swiss, or Italian, whip it on high speed for 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, and your buttercream will get lighter in color. If you notice, when you put it in the fridge, it turns yellowish, but when you start whipping it, it gets lighter. And use purple food color with just a teeny tiny bit, like a little drop of toothpick, like this, just a little dot. Add it to your batch of buttercream. It's not going to turn completely white, but it will get rid of some of the yellow tones in the buttercream. If you're not happy with just the purple, you can add some white, AmeriColor. This is what I use, AmeriColor. So this is what I use. You can add a little bit of this to your buttercream to make it whiter in color. But it will also depend on the brand of butter that you're using. European style butters tend to be lighter in color compared to other butters. That's why I like using French butter for my buttercreams, because it's much lighter than the other brands that we have in the market. To make your buttercream lighter in color, a little bit of purple and some white gel food color. Next question, what kind of food colors can you use for coloring buttercream? There's different types of food colors available. There's liquid, there's gel, and then there's the oil-based food color. I would recommend using gel-based. All gel-based food colors are water-based. So gel-based food colors are the most ideal for coloring buttercream. Please don't use liquid, because when you use liquid, and it will thin out your buttercream. Our gel food colors are more concentrated, so they're ideal to use for buttercream. The brands that I use are Chef Master, AmeriColor, and Sugar Flare. Somebody asked me, can I use oil-based or candy colors for buttercream? There's a popular brand called Color Mill, which a lot of Instagram content creators use nowadays. You can, however, it's a little bit on the pricey side for us in the Philippines, so I wouldn't really, it's going to be added cost na naman yun sa inyo, so I wouldn't recommend it. But the great thing about Color Mill is they have a lot of different color variations, which is great, but you can definitely achieve that by mixing different basic colors. I'll talk about mixing colors and the color wheel in a separate video. Yung tinatanong nila is, can I use candy color? Ito yon. This is from Chef Master Candy Color. This is an oil-based color that you can use for coloring chocolates. You can use it for buttercream. I've tried it. It works. However, I'm just used to gel. And gel colors, mas marami siyang shades. So I prefer them over the candy colors. And please don't use candy colors for meringue. The only reason that it can work with buttercream is because buttercream has fat in it. But for meringue or for macaron, don't use candy colors. Next question. How can I get dark colors for my buttercream? I've talked about this before. I make short videos on my TikTok, and one of them is how to make a red buttercream. The same principle applies for making other dark colors for buttercream. So you use the microwave method. You can check out my TikTok video on how I did that, and also it's on my IGTV. It's on my IG Reels. You don't really need a lot of food color for making dark colors. You just have to wait a little bit longer for the colors to saturate and emulsify in the buttercream. So don't be impatient. If you need dark colors for your buttercream, do it days in advance so the colors can saturate. Next question, how can I make buttercream taste less buttery? For me, it's fine. But if you want it to taste less buttery, make an Italian meringue buttercream. It's not too buttery at all. It's very, very light, and Another tip is whip your buttercream on high for about 10 to 15 minutes. It will taste less buttery. Next, question 14. What brand of butter is best for buttercream? There's different butter brands available in the market. The brand that I use is Flechard. Unsalted butter, please don't use Butler. Butler is a butter compound, so it's Flechard. This is a French butter. It has 82% fat content because it's higher in fat content, which means my buttercream will be a little bit more stable than using other butter brands. When a Flechard is not available, I use either Anchor or Magnolia or Arla. But any butter can work with buttercream as long as it's butter. Okay? Nasa sa inyo na lang yun, depending on your budget. Lurpak is also nice. In the US, I love using Plugra butter. It's my favorite. If you're in the US, if you have Plugra available at the grocery, I highly recommend Plugra. In the Philippines, we have Flechard available and Anchor, Magnolia, or Arla, and I think Carry also, meron, but it's not always available. Which brand? It depends on you. It depends on your budget. Some butter brands are more expensive, like the Emborg, Arla, and Flechard. They're definitely more expensive than the other brands like Magnolia or Anchor. So depende na yun sa budget nyo, and they all taste almost similar. I just like using the European style butters because they're much more stable and they're nice for piping when I'm piping flowers. So that's what I use. There is no best brand. I can make anything work with buttercream. Just use pure butter. Please don't use margarine again. Can I use sweet cream butter? Can you use sweet cream butter? Yes, you can. However, would I use it? No. I tried it before. I didn't like it. For me, matabang siya. Natatabangan ako sa kanya. I can't remember the brand, but it was sweet cream butter and I didn't like it. So, but you definitely can. If you like it, sure. Next question, what can I add to flavor buttercream? You can use, the great thing about buttercream is you can flavor it with a lot of different flavors. You can flavor it with chocolate, just add melted chocolate. You can flavor it with cocoa powder. You can add ganache to it. You can add these flavorings, different extracts and oils. One example is the Laurent oil. So it comes in like these little small bottles. So these are kind of pricey, so I stopped using them. So instead, what I use are these bakery emulsions. Technically, they're for flavoring cakes, for flavoring baked goods, but they can also work with buttercreams. It says here. Emulsion adds a deliciously rich flavor and aroma of coffee to your baked goods and frostings. They're good for fondant, filling, cream centers, cookies, cakes, sweetbreads, and pastries, and other confectionery items. So you can use this in baked goods. You can use it also for flavoring buttercream. So they have different flavors. There's coffee, and this one is peppermint. This is one of my favorites. There's strawberry. There's hazelnut cherry. So these are available from Shopee. I'll post the links below where I got them. These cost somewhere between 200 to 250 pesos. So the Laurent concentrated oil is around 100, some 150. Sometimes I finish one bottle in one go. So it's not, it's a little bit on the pricey side. So this is what I use. I just use a teaspoon or two of the bakery emulsion and it can flavor my buttercream really nicely. There's other ways of flavoring buttercreams. You can add compotes, fruit purees, peanut butter, coffee powder, espresso powder. You can add Biscoff. You can, ang daming pwede. Just be careful when adding fruits to buttercream, like chopped fruits, because there's some fruits have a high water content and it makes the buttercream curdle. So just be careful with that, especially with jams and like fruits like strawberries. So your buttercream will look curdled. Next question. How can I get rid of air bubbles? Paddle attachment, put it on the lowest speed of your mixer for 10 to 15 minutes. It will get rid of most of the air bubbles. You can also do it by hand. Use a silicone spatula and just run it back and forth against the bowl of the mixer, and it will get rid of the air bubbles. Next question, how can I get a smooth buttercream? Same question as with the air bubbles. So if you want a smoother buttercream, put it on low paddle attachment for 10 to 15 minutes. Next, when you're making American buttercream, you can add a little bit more heavy cream. I prefer using heavy cream over milk or water to get a smoother buttercream. Next question. How can I fix broken buttercream? Broken or curdled buttercream. I made a TikTok video about this. I didn't upload it on my Facebook page, but it's on TikTok. So the quick way of doing it is using a torch, using a kitchen torch. This is what I have. This is a propane torch that I got from, I think it was a welding shop. So I bought this, and then the propane tank was also available there, so I bought it. I think the whole thing was 1,800 for everything, or 1,500. I don't remember, but I've had this for many years, and it's been very useful to me. So this is what I use. Heat up the bowl with a torch while it's whipping, and by applying heat to curdled buttercream, it will smoothen out. You can watch my TikTok video on this. Follow my TikTok at JG Cake Design. Next, how can I prevent soupy buttercream? Soupy buttercream usually happens when people get too impatient. They add the butter while the meringue is still very hot, and they add the butter a little bit at a time. Second reason could be you're not adding enough butter. So to create that nice water to fat ratio of an emulsion, you need the right amount of butter so you can have a thick and creamy frosting. If you watched my buttercream tutorials, I teach you my technique there, what I do. Even while the meringue is still a little bit warm, I add all of my butter at once. Because the problem is, in most recipes either from the US or from Europe, they tell you to use room temperature butter and to add the butter a little bit, 1 cube at a time. The problem with that is those recipes, they're used to colder climates than what we have in the Philippines. Sa kanila, ang room temperature, sa atin, aircon temperature na yon. And sa kanila, it's not very humid. Sa atin, it's very humid, it's very hot, and it's very humid. So it's not recommended to use room temperature butter for making buttercream. That's why I don't add it one at a time. I add all the butter at once. Cold butter about 12 degrees Celsius. I add cold butter to the meringue, whip it, and instantly you'll have a beautiful emulsion. And it's almost a foolproof way of preventing soupy buttercream. You should try it. Watch my buttercream videos. I'll put the link below. You can watch them and you can try the different types of buttercream, but I do the same for all the buttercreams. Next, how can I prevent buttercream from melting? I assume this is when you apply on cakes or cupcakes. Buttercream, as long as you don't expose it to extreme heat or extreme temperatures, it will not melt. So I've had it, I've tried it, I've left a cake, it was a dummy cake, at room temperature overnight, frosted with buttercream, and it was still fine. Just don't expose it to extreme temperatures. Like for example, in the middle of summer on the beach, then definitely I would not recommend making a buttercream cake when it's very hot, or when your kitchen is very hot. I wouldn't recommend it. But buttercream will get soft, definitely, but it's not supposed to melt like that. Next question? What's the right consistency of buttercream for frosting cakes? What about for piping? The right consistency, when I frost cakes, for fillings, I use freshly whipped buttercream. One that's very creamy and still thick and a little bit cold. For frosting cakes, I do the opposite. I use melted buttercream. Not too melted that it turns soupy, but very, very soft buttercream. And you get a very smooth, it's so easy to smooth out, it's so easy to spread. It's so easy to smooth the cakes when you use soft buttercream. And it doesn't set as quickly as cold one that's freshly whipped, and you won't have any air bubbles. For piping, however, I use Korean buttercream from GG, and I use cold buttercream. Not only is it translucent, but also I find that it doesn't melt, it doesn't get soft as quickly as regular buttercream. So for piping, a little bit on the stiff side, not too over whipped, still cold. For me, that's perfect for piping. Next, we have a piping related question. My buttercream melts when I pipe. What can I do? I never had this problem because I don't have hot hands. But if you have hot hands, I recommend a bowl of ice water next to you where you can dip your hands when you pipe. If you really want, to pipe buttercream, dip your hands in ice water so they're colder. Because of the heat from your hands, it transfers into your piping bag, and then it melts it, so it gets really, really soft quickly. And I know how frustrating that can be because I've had so many students before who had hot hands and that was their problem. So I made them dip their hands in ice water, and that helped a little bit. You can try wearing gloves. I'm not sure if that's gonna work. I haven't tried it, but you can try wearing gloves, insulated gloves. Next question, how can I make my buttercream more stable? The question of stability comes up all the time when we talk about buttercream. Again, buttercream is not supposed to melt, turn into soup at room temperature unless exposed to extreme heat. However, I wouldn't recommend keeping a buttercream cake at room temperature for hours and hours at a time. I've discussed this before in my buttercream tutorial videos. Why? One way of doing that is replacing some of the butter with shortening. Crisco or Trex, if you live in the UK, there's Trex or Crisco. I don't do it because I don't like using shortening for buttercream. I don't like using shortening for buttercream because it leaves that greasy mouth feel, and I can taste it. Some people won't. Siguro some people they won't be able to tell the difference, but I can, and I don't like it. And if I don't like something, I'm not gonna give it to I'm not gonna make other people eat it. That's just me. But if you're okay with Crisco, go ahead. Another way that you can do it is by adding meringue powder. Not powdered egg whites, meringue powder. Meringue powder is what we use when we're making royal icing cookies. They're better for royal icing cookies over the regular royal icing because it sets into a glossy finish, and it's mas maganda siyang gamitin for royal icing. You can buy meringue powder from you can buy Crisco from any baking supply store. You can buy meringue powder from Gordo's, Walton. Ang nakita kong brand nito ng meringue powder is Walton, so you can try that. It makes the buttercream crust a little bit. Yun yung purpose ng meringue powder. Another way that you can do is if you're making meringue type buttercreams, you can add a little bit of powdered sugar, 1 or 2 cups of powdered sugar at the end. It will make your buttercream stiffer and will make it crust a little bit and make it more stable. But I don't do any of these because I'm pretty happy with my buttercream ratios, and I never had any problems with them. Next, can I make buttercream in advance? What about the shelf life? Yes, you can make buttercream in advance. I do it all the time. I make a large batch of buttercream kasi ang hirap when you make one recipe at a time or every time you have a cake, so ka lang gagawa. That's not very practical when you're running a business. So make a large batch, store the buttercream, it will be fine. Shelf life of buttercream. I wouldn't store it at room temperature even though people say that you can. I wouldn't do it because it's a dairy product. You can keep it in the fridge for up to 1 week in the chiller. Next question, how can I store my finished buttercream? Ziploc bags. You can use freezer bags. This is just an example to show you, but I use freezer bags. Yung blue, what brand is that ba? I think it's Glad. Buy the blue ones, yung mas makapal. Mas makapal siya. So place the buttercream in freezer bags or Ziploc bags. Flatten, so paglagay nyo, just flatten it like this. It consumes less space than placing it in a tub or a container. Some people use cling film. I don't, kasi with cling film, once you open it to get some buttercream, mahirap na siyang ibalik. Oh, and also it's very, very thin, so mabilis siyang mabutas, and it can, pwede siyang mabutas in the freezer. So I highly recommend freezer bags or Ziploc bags for storing your buttercream. Can I freeze buttercream? Definitely you can. You can freeze buttercream for up to a month, or sometimes some people do it up to 3 months. So yes, it's safe to freeze buttercream. Just thaw it at room temperature for 30 minutes and whip it. If your buttercream curdles because it's cold, which happens a lot with Italian meringue and Swiss meringue buttercream, it doesn't happen with faux Swiss meringue. It happens with Italian, it happens with Swiss. So grab your kitchen torch and torch the bowl, or you can place a warm towel on the bowl to warm it up and whip the buttercream, and it will emulsify. That's our last question. If you have more questions, post them below, post in the comment section. Please follow my Instagram at Jamie Gordini Cake Design and on TikTok at JG Cake Design. So that's it. 27 buttercream questions answered. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.